Let me delve a bit personal. Eja, Kebe Moge, where did you also grow up? Kebe, Ebito, how did you communicate to who you are today? Kebe got primary school, secondary school, university. Kehigo. Let's upon some of your classmates because hey, I'm not class now. Primary one, nobody.
Oh,
what
fine.
was your yes? Go ahead.
I told you that my mom is a
teacher. Yes,
so she started us from Enugu-Agide. I went to primary school in Enugu-Agide. At some point, I left and continued in Nobi. It's a church school. Ono Kamusa. So it was a primary. So I was actually living in boarding house in my primary school days. 4, 5, 6, I was in boarding house. Christ Foundation Primary School in Nobi. After that, I came back to Enugu-Agide to do my JSS. There's a school called the Technical School in Enugu-Agide. It's boys secondary school. So because it's an environment where my mom was teaching.
Yes.
So it's easier to fit into that environment to be able to do the things.
Yes.
So I had a teacher that picked interest in me as a little boy, and his name is Dr. Chijoke Nwajiako. I think he's now a lecturer in Lagos State University. Sorry, the University of Lagos, Unilag. So he saw me as a child. I remember walking into I think we were fighting in the class in my JSS 1. So he took us to the staff room. And then in the staff room, they said, what is the problem? What is the problem? So, Onyenki is, Elijah, I said, no, we don't want vernacular here, speak English. So you know what it is, going to a village school and all that. So I was the only person that could express myself in English, Remember, I didn't grow up in that. I had done the completion of 4, 5, 6 elsewhere, So I was the only person. So the man picked interest in me as a little boy, So one day he called me to his house and said, if I write something for you, can you cram it? I said, oh yeah, I can. He now said, okay. So he will write some things for me, 5, 6, 10 pages. I'll cram them and recite them verbatim as a little boy. So he started using me as a debate, as one of the, in fact, in my JSS 1, I was leading the school's debating competition and around and about town. So most of secondary schools around in Jikoka, whether it's comprehensive, NASA, St. Mary's. So I went on debating competition as a chief speaker in JSS 1 representing my school. So and typically people don't know. So for every debate topic, he will write it for me. I will cram it and recite it as though these were my ideas. So he will also tell me what are the, usually you have a first speaker, second speaker, third speaker, and then you come back to now respond to what these other people have said. So I did that, so I was pretty much, so in my JSS 3, the man left. I think he had the youth service. He worked there for 1 year. He decided to go. And he went to my dad and told my dad that he does not think that anybody can take care of me in this school, that he needs to find me a new school. So my dad had to take me to St. Michael's Model Secondary School, Nimo, what they call St. Mike Nimo. There's one of his relatives that is from also a village close by to Nimo, in Urokwe village, Okafor's compound. So that's where I did my 4, 5, 6, before I went to University of Nigeria, Nsukka. I had wanted to become an engineer, by the way. My JAMB was English, Maths, Physics, and Chemistry, So I wanted to become an electronic engineer. So I got electronics engineer.
The one they call EE?
Yeah. No. EE is electrical and electronics.
Okay.
Yes. So I wanted to become an electronic engineer. So I wrote my JAMB. I think I had 236 or 238. I don't remember. But eventually they said that the cutoff was like 250 or thereabouts. So my dad said, what am I going to do? Am I going to write JAMB again? And eventually he said, someone said that they can give me admission in economics. Maybe after 1 year, I can go and change it back to engineering. So I accepted the challenge. So I wasn't even attending classes. I was just going after 1 year with the hope of going back to study engineering. And after my first year, I took my change of course form. I filled it. I took it to my academic advisor, Professor Agoden. The man looked at my result. He looked at me. He looked at my result. He brought the entire class results. The man said, you want to go to engineering? I said, yes. He said, do you know you're one of our best students in this class? I said, I'm not aware. I don't know. I just want to study engineering. He said, okay, do you know that when you will be in your third year in engineering, your mates here will be graduating? The thing hits me in my brain like, ma'am, like third year graduation, I took my form. I said, okay, don't sign it again. That's how I studied economics. So I did it, and then got off. My teachers wanted me to lecture. I didn't agree to that because I felt that I have other responsibilities. I needed to go and look for money. So that's when I started. I became a banker. From there, I was now doing my academics. I studied up to PhD level. I'm also a certified national accountant. I've done quite a lot, in terms of academics and qualification. So that's the story of my journey. And, after I left banking, like I said, I knew I was going to do politics. So when the opportunity came in 2019, in fact, what piqued my interest, I was working for Nigeria Security and Security Printing and Minting. So to 2017, I was in that place, and we had Anambra State elections. The one between 2017, election between Obiano and Tony Moye. So I registered as a APC member, and even though I was working for Mint, I actually brought the ballot papers to CBN here from Lagos, where we printed it, because I was the head of security documents. So at least I knew I would discuss with INEC. They will give us orders on ballot papers to be printed and all of that. So I remember that elections, INEC chairman had a problem at that time. His problem was, how can he stop movement of ballot paper from one local government to the other? So we went and we had a meeting with him, and I recommended to him that we can color code. He said, what do I mean by that? I said, we can make colors of ballot papers different. Anambra has 21. We can generate 21 different colors for you, so that if you move ballot paper from Njikọ to Anocha, you won't be able to use it. A lot of reforms has taken place in that sector. So he felt it was a good idea. So we did it, and it worked. But the bottom line was that at that time, we had about 2.1 million registered voters. But the elections, we had only about 600,000 people that voted in the election. So we came back here after like 4 or 5 months to destroy about 1.6 million papers. So obviously, I was beginning to understand elections. I was beginning to understand numbers, how to deal with elections. Because if you go to INEC, everything about INEC is about elections, logistics, printing of papers, etc., etc. So clearly. So I already knew. When 2019 came, I felt that the time was right to go and run for House of Reps.
2 years after?
Yes, 2 years after. I came, I ran for House of Reps. It's difficult because, at that time, when you say you're a member of APC, you are almost akin to a leper. When you come and you say, the Buhari, the people of the Southeast had a resentment towards APC and Buhari as a president at the time. I've known Buhari. I met him as a banker. I went to his house. I also have a few understanding of his personality. But then again, in a larger community, people will always have their opinion. What you need to do is to respect people's opinion, but at every opportunity I have to explain myself or to add a few things towards your perception, I will say, this is my first-hand experience. This is what... And I'll give you an example. I went to Buhari's house, and he was asking me, where are your parents? I said, they're in the village. He said that, in fact, that time was during Hurricane Katrina. There was Hurricane Katrina that took place in Florida in the US at that time. So we were watching TV in his house, and he said, that that God blessed Nigeria because we don't have natural disasters in our country.
Oh.
Yes, so we are talking about it, and they say, the only natural disaster we have in Nigeria are elites. So Buhari said that it's only the elites because they are the ones that steal money. They travel abroad, they know how everything works, but when they come home, they begin to steal money, So we were laughing, and he said to you, where are you from? I told him. He said, where are your parents? I told him. He said, okay, what is the highest denomination of currency in your local language? I don't forget that, that conversation. I said, well, what do they call it? So I now started thinking. I say, Puku Naira. Puku Naira abrokwana asusu Igbo mgbe gboo. Puku these are just new inventions. New inventions. What we know as money is 200 Naira ego.
The best time to invest in real estate is yesterday. And the next best time to invest in real estate is today. What are you waiting for to invest with Pine Leaf Estate and Properties Limited? With Pine Leaf Estate and Properties Limited, land banking is a must.
Ofu akpa ego is 200 Naira. That's technically what. So, that's akpa ego na ato. What they're actually referring to is 600 Naira.
200.
Yeah, 200. Yeah, akpa ego be 200 Naira. So I remember that. He said, listen, that when you tell someone in the village that someone has stolen 1 billion Naira, they can't relate with it because they have never had that kind of money in their accounts. And the only thing they relate to people that have money is when they see a big house built or when they see a big vehicle pass. They will say, okay, that guy has money. But when you try to say to somebody that someone stole 1 billion, the person have not had 100,000 Naira in their account. how do you expect them to understand it?
Yes.
They don't understand. So this is my personal experience with the man called Buhari. So not that I do not respect what every other person feel, but this is my own personal experience. So just long story short, I ran for the elections, and I lost gallantly. And part of the things you do in politics, and I hope and believe that one day we will get there, is when people lose elections, they need to respect the will of the people. Why did I do that at the time? First is that if you join an existing structure, at that time, PDP was very strong in Anambra State. ABGA was very strong. I was a newbie. In politics, there's something they call joining the queue. So if you come and you join the queue, there are people that are already in that position that want to aspire for what you want to aspire. So you go and wait for your turn. That's the way it is dealt with in politics. So I felt that coming through opposition will do two things for me. First is that it will allow me to stay in the race long enough for people to hear me, for people to be able to interact with me and know the stuff that I'm made of. So joining APC, which was an unpopular party at the time, was very good for me because I stayed in the race long enough till I lost the election. But at least, even after the elections, people will come to me and say, oh, you did very well. Oh, I like your perspective. Oh, next elections, I will support you. Oh, I think I can invest in you. So that's what opposition does for you, because from that opposition, people also know you, particularly if you know what you are offering the people. So I lost gallantly. I congratulated the winner happily and went back to my work because politics shouldn't even be what people do. It was a very complicated one because PDP won the elections. That time, Atiku and P2B were on the ballots. So there was always the pressure that goes with the wave that. So the PDP person won the election, Honorable Valaika. From Enugu, luckily for us at that time, 3 of us, PDP, ABGA, APC, were all from Enugu. It was Honorable Valaika who won the election at the time. It was Honorable Duze Wankwo representing ABGA and myself representing APC. So we are all in the same. So for us and for us as a community, is was whichever way it is still in Enugu.
Yes.
So we didn't really lose anything. But unfortunately, he also lost it because Honorable Duze Wankwo actually had some issues he contested in court, and the court gave him the victory. What head or tail, it's still an Enugu person anyway. So, but for me, I didn't think it was a big issue because for people that are very good and think they've got the stuff, particularly as relates to leadership, your responsibility is not to question the people's will. Your responsibility is to offer yourself for service. Let people hear you. And if they don't think that you are good enough by refusing your vote, you take a walk. You take a walk. There's no, God will always judge you. Your own part is to make yourself available. So if they say, no, we don't want you, I take a walk. I will run for election. If people say, okay, they don't want me, I will roll out my CV. I will say, what is it that I'm made of? I will say what I think I can do. If people still say, sorry, we don't want you. Oh, we don't want, it's fine. Nice doing business with you, but at least you've done your own part. And with every election cycle comes with experience. Because there's so much to learn. Sometimes it is not in losing. You actually don't lose when they say you've lost an election.
Right.
Because there are things you gain. I have this famous quote. Not a famous quote. Someone called Okocha in Delta States he's a very experienced businessman and also understands politics in Nigeria. So partly what I do is any space I find myself, I try to go and learn from the masters in that business. So I went to him, and then he told me that if I'm not ready for politics, I should still go home. I said, how else will I know if I'm ready beyond my intent and wanting to make changes? He said, no, you also have to develop the skills of taking 50 million naira to River Niger. You look at it, Ghana must go. You kick it and all of them falls inside water and you will not have the heart to feel sorry about it. You turn back and go, then you're not ready for politics. So think about it again. It means that it's a business where you're likely to have a lot of waste. So if you are worried about waste, then do not join politics because it will happen. It's a business where you take money and give to somebody that you know will not support you. And you still go ahead and still try to do that. Do you understand? But the point is that those kind of investments in politics, even if it does not pay you in an electoral cycle, in an election cycle, it can also pay you in another elections. So today, some people that didn't work with me when I wanted to be House of Representatives by that time, some of them are my friends now and they are working with me. You know, between then and now too, I've also done a lot of things that people can say, okay, he has done this, okay, he has done this. So cool, we think he has the capacity to do that. So the fact that you came out for an election and you lost does not necessarily mean you've lost. There are some learning points. That's when you understand that Ojebego does not mean Ojebego. You know, so that's when you understand that rallies does not necessarily translate to votes on an election day. So these are all. So if I sit down now that I'm running an election and people come to me to say, oh, we have this structure. Oh, we can deliver you. I laugh because the only thing I want to do as an experienced politician is to ask you what is your polling booth. In the last election, I have the result. I can go to my phone and tell you who scored what vote in your polling unit. So if I cannot see in your polling unit, myself and yourself, we don't have any business. All this, we have this structure. It doesn't take anything to mobilize crowd. Once you can pay for mobilization, you get the crowd. But that crowd does not necessarily translate to vote. At all. You know, so these are the things that you learn in politics that allows you to now do politics better in a much better way.
Good news! The Mars Magazine International, in collaboration with Pine Leaf Estate and Properties Limited, present Pine Leaf Night of 100 Stars. It is going to be a charity gala and an award event where icons from all spheres of life will be celebrated and given an award of recognition for their tremendous contribution to the development of our society. The theme of this special event is Dynamic Repositioning. The date is Saturday, 27th of June 2026 and the time is 5 p.m. Venue, Tanel Dome, Oka, Anambra State. Guess what? The Executive Governor of Anambra State, Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo, will be receiving the Mouse Man of the Year Award, and Prince Arthur Eze Ozigbondo will be the father of the day. Be there, be seen, and be part of history.